Hey y'all feeling the hair? I just came back from the gym. My back muscles are sore as hell because I did like a full back workout yesterday and I'm feeling the effects today. But I have a bit of like an arm pump and a little titty pump. I was thinking about what video I should make today, and I realized I want to make a video about why gay and bi men are so horned. I really want to make sure my videos don't get demonetized. I'm going to be using a lot of code wording in this video. So the reason gay bi men are always looking for that sort of immediate release, to the point where they undervalue an actual relationship and value or put the act on a pedestal, this actually starts in childhood. For most people, when you're either gay or bisexual, you're made to understand that there is something wrong with that. When the average straight person thinks of any homosexuality, they think of the act of sex right away. So those straight people that are persecuting you for your sexual orientation or making you believe that there's something wrong with it are mostly addressing the sex. So from a very early age, from the time where you are being told that there is something wrong with your sexuality, who you want to love, sex is put at the forefront of your conscious but also very much subconscious mind when it comes to your orientation. You are made hyper aware of sex more so than the average straight person. Because you've been taught that homosexuality and bisexuality, the main character of that is sex, you are going, because everybody else thinks that that's what being gay or bisexual is, you are going to look in the mirror, see gayness or bisexuality, and then see sex as at the forefront of that, because that's what you've been taught that your sexuality is, which is why it's very important to form your individual identity with yourself and have a very strong sense of self that exists outside of what anybody has ever told you to be, because these people lied to you. Main character of your sexual orientation is what your heart desires, is those moments that don't have anything to do with sex. And even that, we call it a sexual orientation because it's so sex focused. A lot of queer men, because their sexuality is so intertwined with their identity is literally attached to the concept of sex. And when you persecute someone because of something that they cannot control, race, sexuality, gender, you force them to create an identity around that thing. So when people say, why are you making everything about race? Why are you making everything about sexuality? Why are you making everything about being trans or cisgender? Because that person has gone through traumatic experiences in relation to sexuality, race, or gender identity due to rejection, trauma, hate crimes. So now their identity their ego has formed itself around this concept because the mind, the conscious mind, which is the ego, says, I have to be hyper aware of this thing because this could be the make or break for me to live or die. This is very prevalent for trans people especially, but for anybody, I have to be hyper aware of this concept because this, if I ignore it, I could be in danger. So you see this a lot with black people. I have to be aware that I'm the only black person in this room because if something happens, I have to be ready to react. I have to be aware that I'm the only bisexual person in this room because if something happens, I have to be ready to react. I have to be aware that I'm the only trans person in this room because if something happens, I have to be ready to react. That's the ego trying to protect you, your conscious mind trying to protect you. So when people over-identify with their race or sexuality or gender identity, it's because their conscious mind is trying to keep them safe from re-experiencing those traumatic events that made them aware that they are gay or black or trans in the first place, right? Even if you didn't experience that much homophobia growing up, the way society sees you will impact how you see yourself, which is why I said it's very important to develop a sense of self that has nothing to do with society. So now, because queer men now grow up in their formative years seeing themselves through the lens of sex, when they interact with other queer men because of what they've been told gayness or bisexuality is, guess what they're gonna project onto others? You project onto others how you see your relationship with yourself says everything about your relationship with others. How you treat yourself will often, if you don't see it, it's going to be seen in how you treat others. So if a queer man has been told his whole life that his queer identity is, the focal point of his queer identity is sex, he's going to look at other queer men and think, well, the focal point of my relationship with you is going to be sex. That's going to be the main and most important thing about our relationship. That is going to be the first thing we talk about, the first thing we have to establish. Because I see myself and my sexuality through the lens of sex, because that's what was forced on me, and now I'm going to force it on you. And so now this domino effect happens with queer men and the relationship that they have with each other, because all they know is sex, 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 because that's what straight people told them that what being gay is. That's what straight people told them that's what being bisexual is. With straight people, you don't see this as often. Although straight men are also quite horny, they have women who have been told that, hey, if you're too sexual, you're a, I don't want to use bad words. If you're too sexual, that's you should be ashamed to be too sexual as a woman. So because women have been conditioned to interact with sex in a different way than men, there's this natural push and pull between men and women. A man can be very, very, very horny, and the woman is always going to be the one that's going to be like, let's see. Let's see if you deserve to have sex with me. Let me just see. And you see this in nature too with peacocks. Peacocks, the male peacock is the one with the very big, beautiful colors, and he has to audition for the woman who doesn't have these big, beautiful colors, but she's the one who says, yes, I want to mate with you, or no, I don't want to mate with you. And we see this in human beings too. Women have to decide whether or not they want to let a man enter their energy. So because there is a reluctance on the part of the woman, we have straight men who are forced to tame their sexual desires and to genuinely pursue relationships with women. Between men, there is no natural push and pull of, oh, I don't know if I should let you hit, because why should you deserve to have access to me? That's a woman's mentality. But men have not been conditioned to interact with sex that way. Men have been conditioned to go, 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 go with sex. So even though queer men have been told that it's shameful to be what they are, because they have hormones and they are not going to be able to, deny their needs, they are going to just jump and jump and jump, and there are no barriers, because society, this is also another thing, society has ostracized queerness, queer men, but just queerness in general, to the side so much that they pushed queer and gay and bi men outside of the realms of the ethics, values, and norms of sex. So again, for straight people, you can't really have 500 sexual partners in your lifetime, because that is unhealthy, that's risky, that's whatever, that's sinful, that's all these standards that like straight people have to exist in, because they have not been excluded from society's moral compass. Queer men have been excluded from society's moral compass, so much so that now they don't see the need to follow any of the rules that straight people have established. Why should I be in a relationship with one person? Which is why polyamorous relationships are so normal for queer men. Why should I only have sex with 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 people in my lifetime? I've been kicked out of I'm already seen as something immoral. I'm never going to be seen as something moral or something that's not inherently shameful. So why should I have any shame about anything related to my relationships? And I think there's a positive aspect to that, which makes queer men reevaluate the way we've been taught to see relationships, which can offer a very fresh perspective around love and relationships and sex. But the bad side of this is that there is no limit. There is no limit to sexual activity. There's no limit to literally anything. Nothing is considered disgusting. Nothing is considered shameful. Nothing is considered too much, because you've been kicked off the table. So you might as well go all the way. You might as well go off the deep end. And what is that? I see a fly. I'm just gonna go kill it. Queer men are very hypersexual because they've been taught to see their identity through the lens of sex, because to straight people, not all obviously, but to the straight people who are looking to persecute queer people and to make queerness something shameful, they only see that through the lens of sex. Queerness is just sex, because they don't think real love can exist between two people of the same sex. And when they're raising children who they want to instill that shame in, they're going to teach them that same notion. So that's reason number one. Reason number two, queer people have been removed from society's moral compass, which gives them too much leeway to operate outside of all societal norms. this is also, I think, why, this is a really like a side note, but I think this is also why crazy, weird age gaps are so common amongst queer men. Although I will say age gaps are common among men in general, like even men who date women also participate in these weird age gaps. I genuinely think that that's a man thing, although women can do this too, but we see that a lot with men. But with queer men, I think for straight men, there's a different reason why that's normal, but for queer men, it's specifically because there are no rules for queer men. Society has been spent so much time shaming queer men for being queer that they are now queer men are getting away with all of these like bad behaviors because they're technically kind of locked out of heaven anyway. So nobody's, it's like when there's a bouncer that is rejecting people from the club, the bouncer doesn't care who's in the parking lot. The bouncer doesn't care. You can't, as long as you're not in the club, the bouncer is not checking for you. So now people can just party in the parking lot, do whatever they want in the parking lot, because nobody's guarding the parking lot. Nobody's watching the parking lot. And queer men are essentially in the parking lot outside of the club, doing whatever the fuck they want, not being held accountable by straight society because you've already been kicked out, you know? So I think I also see like these crazy age gaps, like 40-year-old dating 18-year-olds, which is so crazy, and nobody really says anything because they've already criticized the LGBT community enough to the point of just not messing with it at all. And so now all the fucked up shit that like queer people do is just like, I see a lot of queer men only really becoming able to like love themselves if they are sexually desired, because again, we've all been taught to see our identity through the lens of sex, and your relationship with yourself infers your relationship with others. So now sex becomes such a focal point in all our relationships that if you're not sexually desirable, you're nothing in the LGBT community. So I've always felt a little disconnected and a little out of place in the LGBT community. I've always felt like everything is so overly sexual. And I remember having like bisexual friends when I was younger who would agree with me, but I think we all feel that way, but it's the way that it is, and so we go with it. And I think for a while I was going with it, but by the time I was 18, 19, actually, I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want a relationship. And literally since then, I've just been like kind of bored with that, and I don't really participate in hookup culture that much. I've actually taken a pretty feminine approach to sex. I'm a top, full top. And now like when guys are really, really thirsty for me, and it's within the first few interactions that they have with me, I wait. And I learned this really just from like having a sense of self-worth. Not everybody who's horny for me, no matter how sexy they are, should have access to me. Just because you find me sexually attractive, okay, good for you. Why should I give you access to my body? Why should you get this schlong just because you're horny and you look good? Because after I nut, what then? And that's the thing, that's what I feel like a lot of these dudes don't realize. And I think I've never been in a relationship with a man. Never been in a relationship with a man in my life. And I meet guys and they ask me, why not? And I'm like, do you not see how everyone is? Everyone is so obsessed with sex and nobody cares about relationships. And I feel like gay guys and bisexual guys, they turn like 30 and then they care about being in a relationship. And I'm like, I've been in like relationship mode since I was like 19. Since I was like 19, I was like, I don't want to interact with a guy if it's just gonna be sex. And I've had that mentality, but I've always been like a bit older mentally. Even when I was mad young, when I was like 8 years old, I was like very, very knowledgeable about the concept of like consent. I would watch like shows like Special Victims Unit and like these very serious shows that would cover these very serious subject matters, but like I was always really hip to it. Like that was always my thing. But you know, I feel like the next time after that I started to see that I was a little older mentally was when I started to realize that all these queer men still think it's a good idea to always chase the next nut, to always chase the next sexual gratification. And I've been looking around me for years now, like, is anybody gonna realize that this is not like sustainable? Is anybody gonna realize that going home lonely and, you know, just like isolated after a hookup is not satisfying, and that you're gonna need actual companionship that's going to last you. You're gonna need someone that you can build a legacy with. Like, I just feel like I'm the only person at my age who genuinely feels this way. Or at least where I live, which is why I've never been in a relationship with a guy. And like, yeah, so like people always, like guys, like I meet new guys and I'll be like, I've never been in a relationship, and they're like, is it by choice? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, how are you acting like you don't know this? But anyway, yeah, like I find it just weird because I also don't want to wait until I'm 30 to have my first relationship with a man. I feel like that's fucking insane. Like, when I interact with men, I'm very intentional. I only entertain men that I would see myself being in a relationship with. If a man is really, really sexy, but I can only see myself having sex with him, I will deadass not even link with him. I will deadass not even link with him. I have a friends with benefits. It's a woman, but like, I have a friends with benefits. If I really want to fuck and just nut, I already got, I have like, not a roster, it's one person, but I have somebody for that. Because I've also noticed a lot of men, two things. First of all, men will literally use your body to sexually gratify themselves, which is like, it feels very objectifying. Two, a lot of men will use sex with you to fuel their self-esteem. See, a lot of queer men don't have a lot of self-worth. I covered this in one of my last videos. They have very low self-worth, and the only thing that makes them feel good about themselves is when a man validates them via being attracted to them or via fucking them. And I'm not gonna give you that. You're not gonna use me as a boost for your own self-esteem. You should already come to me with a healthy self-esteem that's already intact, a sense of self-worth that's intact. You shouldn't have to use sex and other men to validate you. You should already feel validated within yourself. So when I peep that a man just finds me so hot and he wants to absolutely fuck me, sometimes you can tell that it's just like, you need me to make you feel like you're beautiful, like you're worth it, like you're attractive, like you need me to give you that boost. On God, I'm not gonna give it to you. Like, I remember the last dude I dealt with, he had self-esteem issues. He didn't feel like he was attractive enough for me, and we had linked up a year ago, like, or a year and a half ago, like almost 2 summers ago, and we had sex once. And then he told me he had a boyfriend and they were in an open relationship. I ghosted him. Like, well, actually, I told him, I don't want to talk to you if you have a boyfriend, and then I ghosted him. And then a year later, he came back. They had broken up. We started talking again, but he would tell me like he didn't really feel that, like he felt like I was too hot for him or out of his league, and he saw that I was not really trying to hook up with him. I wanted to wait because now that he came back and he expressed the intention to date me, I was like, okay, well court me then, like let's date me then. And for a while it was going well, but then he was like waiting on the sex, and he was so at it. Every conversation we would have by text was about sex. I want you to fuck me, I want you to fuck me, I want you to fuck me, and it was like getting annoying. And the more he kept pushing for it, the more I was like, nah, it's gonna have to happen naturally. But to him, he was taking that as I'm not attracted to him, as I think he's ugly, and his innate insecurity about his appearance got worse because I wouldn't validate him by giving him schlong. And eventually, he just figured that I didn't want him and that I was leading him on. When it's like, no, we should actually literally date. We should actually take our time. We should actually form a bond, because everybody knows sex is so much better when you have a bond with the person, when you know who you're fucking, when you know exactly what. Fucking after the first date, you can do that. You can do that. You absolutely can do that, and you can go on to have a beautiful relationship. But I'm not going to do that with somebody who's just looking for me to dick them down so that they could have a better self-esteem, so they could look in the mirror and feel better about themselves. That's pretty much all I have to say for this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I saw y'all comments in the last video. You guys were getting down. You guys were writing paragraphs. I fuck with that. Keep the discussion coming. I'm going to try to drop some more content for you guys. Leave video suggestions in the comments. What would you want to see? What are issues that you've noticed about the LGBT community? I'll definitely address them, because you know I like to talk. So thanks for watching.